Welcome to Creative Piecemeal Podcast, a podcast for creatives. I'm your host, Tammy Takeishi. Join me for compelling conversations with artists, actors, authors, musicians, and other creatives about the impact of the creative and fine arts in their lives and our ever-changing world. Thank you for listening. Hello and welcome to another episode of Creative Piecemeal Podcast. Today I'm joined by Laura Henning. She's a multi-creative, including being a dancer, model, actor, singer, and choreographer. She currently resides in New Mexico and enjoys spending time with her family and her two pups.
Hi, Tammy.
Hello, so nice to have you on the show.
Nice to be here.
Laura and I have connected many years ago, but this is such a nice chance to get to know her better and for the listeners to get to know this very talented lady. So first we're going to start with who or what inspired you to become a dancer and later, of course, moving into the other creative pursuits.
It's a bad answer, but just to start with already. So it's going to be a great podcast. My mom put my sister and I, we're 13 months apart. She just put us in ballet because she decided she wanted two girls who would dance. And it just ended up perfectly enough that we loved it and we stuck with it. But during that time, I had a couple of really wonderful teachers who inspired me and kept me going. One is named Milena Levin. She still teaches in Houston, and she was a principal with the Royal Ballet. And I also had a jazz teacher named Amber Thornton, who was a very big inspiration and a really wonderful cheerleader. So there are many more, but those are the two.
Excellent. And for a while, you and your sister spent time in New York and were members of the Rockettes. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So I guess when I turned 19, I decided that being a tall girl, the best thing to do would go try and be a Rockette. So I auditioned, and the year that I got in, they hired 14 new girls to become Rockettes. And actually, the first thing that I ever did as a Rockette, I had not learned a single dance step, but we were being put in a book, a commemorative like costume book. So I was on stage at Radio City, 19, didn't know a single thing about it, in the costumes and doing poses. And I had never even learned a single dance step. So that was really incredible. But I did the Rockettes for 6 years out of the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville, which was wonderful. Feels like a second home. And then I just, things get in the way and you want to do other things. So gotten more into musical theater that way, which is great.
Excellent. And I had the wonderful opportunity of seeing you in musical theater a few years back before pandemic. And it's just so nice to see all your skills showcased in one big bunch.
It's fun to do musicals because you do get to be a little bit more of a human, where the Rockettes are beautiful and all together. There's a very set style. And in a musical, you can be as wacky as you want to be. So that's very fun.
What's a musical that you haven't had a chance to do yet that you'd be interested in being involved in?
Oh my gosh. There are so many, but I'd have to say, for selfish reasons, Chicago or Cabaret. They're just beautiful, kind of dark shows. There's not a ton of costume changes, and you just get to dance your heart out.
Excellent. What is one of your favorite and least favorite things about the creative process when it comes to dancing?
My favorite thing is, well, I think they're probably the same thing. Actually, my favorite and least favorite is the freedom you get to create a character in a musical is really wonderful. You can make many different choices, and sometimes you'll be, messing around backstage and a director will see something and say, you got to do that now 8 times a week. And you think, oh my God, why was I doing cartwheels backstage? I could have just, calm down. But that's also, for me, I'm also a very literal person. So sometimes the freedom of creating something if you put too much pressure on yourself and you're like, I got to be different from the rest of the girls, or I have to create a character right now, can be really overwhelming, which is probably why I just spent the entirety of COVID doing studies at the Second City, trying to get a little bit better at improv and coming up with ideas.
Improv always sounds so fascinating to me.
Well, and I was doing, Zoom improv, which was even crazier, but it's really fun. I mean, if you find the right group, I think it's actually for you, I think it would be perfect because you could bring it in. I'm sure you already use it in your line of work, though. I'm sure you're already improving with the people you work with, so you'd be very good at it.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I definitely have a wonderful chance to improv in terms of music and conversation, but I think the opportunity to improv maybe comedy or improv a dramatic scene would be really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Or improv
Yeah.
dance. I've always wanted to do tap dancing. Are you into tap dancing?
Yes, I've taken tap since I was 5, and I love tap. But one of our teachers would always have us improv at the end of a tap class, and that was my worst nightmare.
Oh, so we're going to switch gears here to a book question. And what is a book that you've recently read that inspired you?
Okay. I've recently been reading a book that just never ends. It's called The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday, and he's actually a philosopher who lives in Austin, Texas. And so every day there's a reading of from Marcus Aurelius or Epictetus or Seneca, and you read it and meditate on it, think about it, and try to live by more grounded and calm lifestyle. I'm a little bit crazy, and so it's really nice to be reminded every day of what's important and what you should be working toward and for. So the Daily Stoic would be the thing that I would say.
Oh, that sounds very neat. I'm going to have to look into that and I'll put a link in the show notes as well. Have you ever been interested in reading dance books, or has anything that you've read sort of seeped into your dancing?
A director that I've worked with quite a bit, who I absolutely adore, is a man called Richard Stafford. He directed me in the musical Cats. He was the director and choreographer on the national tour, and I've done 9 different shows with him. Recently, I reconnected with him because I was choreographing a show, and I asked him what he finds creatively inspiring. So he suggested reading books about Twyla Tharp. I read a biography of Twyla Tharp, and then I read an autobiography by Twyla Tharp about the creative process. And she's a very interesting example of someone who broke the rules in all the best ways. So
one of my favorite things about podcasting is getting so many great book recommendations. So
yeah, I'm always looking too. So I need to go back and listen to every single one of yours to get their recommendations.
It might be good if maybe I put them all in a nice cohesive list.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
What is a piece of advice, whether it's music, singing, dancing, acting advice, that you ignore, and one that you always follow?
Okay, so I was born with very short Achilles tendons and can never really get my heels down on the ground. And every new teacher that I've ever had will say, get your heels down. And so I throw that out the window and ignore that, only because I can't. If I could, I would put my heels down. And I guess the one I would always follow would be that you have to dance in opposition. So if you're going up, you have to think down. If you're going forward, you have to think about your back. I had a teacher that was very strict about dancing through your back. You have to dance in every direction. And that did not make sense to me for the longest time. And now I'm getting too old to use it. And I wish I had fully understood it when my body could do everything I wanted it to do.
That sounds like a really interesting piece of advice, and something that could almost transcend to any other creative aspect as well. Just sort of using your whole self into whatever creative endeavor that you're doing.
And also just keeping in mind what it is your goal's natural opposite and working that in somehow. Like even when you take an acting class, if you're supposed to cry in a scene, they say play not crying, because then it makes that even more powerful, because you're trying so hard not to do that thing. And in real life, you don't just burst out. Well, maybe I don't normally just burst out into tears, because I tell people I'm not really a crier, but I definitely am. And so it's the trying not to that makes things more powerful. It's like an opposite thing, if that makes sense.
Yes, yeah. I can see that now, now that you mention it, like going back, thinking about favorite movies and things like that, where people have powerful scenes.
Oh yeah. Kate Winslet. I always think of Kate Winslet. Or Emma Thompson. I don't know.
So, fun question. You've lived quite a few places in the world. What's one of your favorite restaurants that you've ever been to?
Ooh. So I lived in New York for 10 years. So I think it would have to be and sadly, it doesn't exist anymore, but it was a restaurant in the West Village called the Spotted Pig that was pretty famous, and I think just ended during COVID. It was just a cool atmosphere and very dark and very small. All the tables were really close to each other, and every time my parents would come visit, we'd have to go to the Spotted Pig.
Excellent. This is another food question, but after a concert or a recital, what is a favorite food that you like to indulge in?
In the Rockettes, it used to be pizza and cookie dough. I don't ask me why. I was 19. But I really like it's really fun to just go out. We used to have places like when I was in high school, the theater that we would perform at would be like right across the street from like a Denny's. So we would always go to Denny's and like get breakfast or things like that. And I like having a set little ritual or, ritual at the end. I think it's fun to go to the same spot and just chat about what probably went wrong during that show.
Yeah, it's always nice, to make memories and to like eat amazing food or sometimes try something new afterward.
Oh, for sure.
So back to another sort of musical and dancing question, but who are some of your favorite dancers, choreographers, and or actors?
Ooh, you are asking all the hard ones. There are so many people. So I've thought about this. It's just really hard to answer. So a choreographer right now would be a Canadian woman named Crystal Pite. Her pieces are done by the biggest and best companies. We've seen her performances at the National Ballet of Canada when I lived in Toronto, and then also in Seattle. She works with Pacific Northwest Ballet. Her pieces are really weird, and parts of it don't even seem like you would categorize them as dance. It's like repeated movement by a lot of people, and almost evokes like swarms of bugs and things like that. And then all of a sudden they'll break out into the most beautiful dance pieces. And she's always got really cool music and very like pared back costumes and things like that. So Crystal Pite would be the choreographer right now. I came from ballet, and while I love musical theater so much, when I think of dancers, I always go to ballet because that was so instilled in me. So my favorite ballerina is a woman called Natalia Osipova. And she is a Russian ballerina who's I got to meet her in real life. She didn't speak any English, but I just slobbered all over and told her how much I loved her. She's tiny, but she dances like she's 12 feet tall. And she's wonderful to watch. And then if I was going to pick someone, can I pick somebody dead?
Sure.
It'd have to be Fred Astaire for me. I just love Fred Astaire. He's the best.
He is so good. He is so good.
He's even that sweet little voice, like he could. I don't think he's done anything wrong ever. That may come back to bite me someday, but
I just can't believe how light on his feet he is. Was.
Yes, there's something about him. It's so easy, but everything is. If you went to learn it, it's so hard, and he just makes it look like it's nothing. It's amazing.
What do you think of all the dance trends that happened over the pandemic and keep continuing, like on TikTok and things?
Oh, that's a good question. I haven't thought about that. Some of them I think are truly amazing, and some of them not the best. I don't know. I'm a very awkward human, and though I can play a character who's quote unquote sexy, I think that the sexualization of some of these things is interesting, and I just know that as a teen or younger person, I wouldn't be able to I wouldn't be able to make it look good. So it's probably more me feeling left out because I'm not cool enough. But there are some amazing. I love it when like kids dance with their parents. I think that that's really really sweet and cool, and that's the kind of parent that I would hope to be someday.
I think you're very cool, very talented.
Oh, thank you. You are.
But I completely understand you. Like I see all those moves on TikTok, and I'm like, how do they contort their body like that? I can't walk up a flight of stairs without tripping.
I know. I used to have a teacher that said that dancers were the most they were the clumsiest people in the world because we don't expect anything to be in our way because the stage is just flat. So if you put stairs in, and I've been in shows where they've been like, now you have to run up those stairs, and I'm like, don't make me run up stairs in in dance shoes, and like, this is just, it's not going to go well, and it hasn't gone well before.
If you don't mind, sort of digging deep, what has been some barriers, whether internal or external, to sort of reaching the high points in your career?
I feel like I'm a pretty private person, and at this point in time, you'll show up at auditions and they want to know how many followers you have, or what things you've been involved in. And I think being a bit private and not having open Instagram things and things like this, I think could possibly have prevented some growth. It's an industry, so it's difficult to know what decisions you could have made differently or how you could have handled something. And I think for me, I really thought growing up that being a good dancer would mean that you could dance in any show. And I think I sing and I love my vocal coach, but I think it would have probably helped me a little bit to have started singing earlier. I don't know. Did that even answer your question?
Yeah. It's interesting you bring up a good point in the ever-changing world of the arts and what's expected of young performers, whether they're musicians or actors or dancers. And you mentioned followers. Like, that's something that I would never think of that people would ask at an audition, but in this day and age, that seems like a really relevant question.
Yeah, they want people to come to the show, and so they want, if you've got 20,000 followers and they see you, then maybe they'll come for that. I mean, I think the art should speak for itself, but I'm a little naive. So it's been an interesting ride.
Yeah. I'm actually, I agree with you. I think as nice as it is for someone to have a follower count, the art really should speak for itself, and the person's abilities should be more important than the popularity contest. Unfortunately, that's not always what happens in the creative world. So
yeah, exactly.
If you could do any other creative pursuit besides what you have done, what would you be interested in doing?
So my mom is a painter and was an art teacher. She's retired now. I paint on the side. I'd love to do that. I'd love to, really, I had 48 hours in every day. I would want to paint. You mentioned books. I absolutely love books. I'd love to be a writer. And actually, because we're out in New Mexico now, and because COVID has had such an impact on regional musicals and casts like that being brought together, I have started entering like little writing competitions and seeing if that is something that could be another outlet. So it's kind of, I also crochet. So I'm kind of, I'm not the mathematic minded person. I'm interested in everything artsy.
That sounds fantastic. You mentioned crocheting. What's some of your favorite things to crochet?
I'm just starting, so I'm actually just finishing my first sweater, which I thought I knew better than the pattern and decided to go a little bit off. and I'm now like, oh, I see, that's why she wrote it like that. So I have crocheted many, knitting's too hard. I've crocheted many a dog sweater that my dogs don't keep on.
Oh,
So I have to figure out a way to make it unget outable next time.
there you go. That's cute though. It's always cute to see dogs in sweaters.
Yeah, one loves a dog in a sweater.
Yep. Maybe you could crochet them a little beret, you know.
Oh my gosh, now you're giving me ideas.
I agree though about knitting. That is very hard.
The thing about I started with knitting, and when you mess up, you're just done for. In crochet, it's so much easier if you mess up to fix it. So I was like, I'll just do this. I don't have enough patience to really get good at the fiber arts. I just like the feeling of it. So I'll do the basics.
And you talked a little bit about writing. Is that something that if you had more time in the day, you could sort of see yourself developing?
Yeah, I actually need to do it now. I've been so undisciplined about it. I don't know if anyone on your podcast before has talked about the artist way, but that's something that I've started so many times and then not gotten through. And so this is like the journaling, the writing, the artist way kind of life is going to start for me on January 1st, 2023, and we'll just hope to goodness it sticks. So I always find myself thinking, oh, I better write that thing down, and then I don't, or I just make a note on my phone and it never becomes a thing. So the new goal is to write.
That's excellent. Yeah, it's always good to have goals, and just trying at your goals is still an accomplishment. It's still being creative.
Yeah, no one has to see it. That's the thing is I find that a lot of my friends or family, they get funny because they think if I paint this thing, then, people will judge. I'm like, nobody has to see it. Just throw it out or put it in a basket somewhere or have a bonfire.
Yeah.
But just do it. It's fun.
So another writing question, I'm just terribly curious since you mentioned it. If you could be any fictional character, who would you be?
Oh, you will have definitely gotten this answer before, but Elizabeth Bennet. Pride and Prejudice is just the one. It's the book that I read every year, and it just never gets old. I love her. She's spicy when women weren't spicy. And yeah, Elizabeth Bennet.
Nice. Have you seen all the different variations of the book, I imagine?
Oh, all of them. But I love that Keira Knightley version. It's gorgeous, and 2 hours instead of watching Colin Firth over and over. Although he was a wonderful Darcy, I do have to say.
Yes. I must say the cinematography and the colors and the music of the Keira Knightley version was really nice.
It was a beautiful movie, truly. I watched that more than I even reread them. It's awful. But yeah.
What is something that you are most thankful for?
That would have to be the support of my family. My parents gave up a lot for us to be in dance. We were at a very intense dance school outside of going to public school, and we didn't go on vacations because we were at a dance intensive, and they gave up a lot of things so that we could make it. And both my sister and I have, performed in professional shows and venues, and so I'm sure when they get to buy a ticket and see it, it's worth it. But they gave up a lot, and also it's not easy to be married to somebody that is a artist circus person, which is what I call musical theater actors. And so my husband being so supportive and seen me in every show that I've done since we've met, and he's just super supportive and helps me with auditioning and everything. So nice little pep talks.
That's great. What is something that you wish you had known when you first started on your creative journey?
And that goes back to what we were talking about it being just a business. And you think naively that your talent or your drive or whatever is gonna win out. And sometimes that's true, and sometimes that's not true. So I think that in the beginning, a lot of my self-worth was tied up in did you get that show? Did you not get that show? Is one of your friends in a better show? Then that makes you, and it's just not, that's not it. It's about the art and creating and doing what you want to do. And it's not about, if you weren't in this cast or whatever, then you just get to go watch your friends in it, and enjoy it. So yeah, that would be it for me.
Yeah. I imagine it takes most every creative person time to get to that sort of realization.
Yeah, and well, I think you also just get beat down so much. It can really beat you down. So if you don't come to that realization, but a lot of people come to it, but it's too late, or they've already moved on. But yeah, I mean, I can say it on a podcast, but day to day, that's hard to remember. And so you see someone just got cast in their whatever umpteenth Broadway show, you can't help but feel a certain way, like happy for them, but also some way about yourself. But again, I'm living in the desert right now, like writing poetry for competitions. So I'm not in it at this point. You can't be mad about something you didn't show up for.
And it's so wonderful to know that you're doing other creative outlets. Like, even if you're not able to go and be in a Broadway show right now, you're able to find ways to express yourself and learn more about yourself with new expressions, of course.
Yeah, and I think all of these things, I mean, I think every art form links to every other art form, and so when you take a break and really get to know some other piece of you, that can only help when you go back to the first thing. All of these things, film and visual art, and everything you do, everything you read, everything you see, builds up into this human you're becoming always.
So you talked a little bit earlier about The Artist's Way, which is an absolutely fantastic book. I know a lot of people go through that like as a course, and workshop and things like that. What is something that you're really looking forward to learning this time around?
I'm most interested in trying to get to a place where I feel at home enough in myself and free enough from the fear of judgment or whatever to just create more and not worry about it, and not judge it as it's happening. Even now, I take a voice lesson and I'll judge a song that's coming out of my mouth as it's coming out of my mouth, and that's unhelpful. I'd love to feel calm enough and grounded enough to write something and post it for people to see. And I also want to feel like something's opened to where I feel more comfortable just giving the idea that comes to me, out for people to say, oh, or what if it was like this, or more collaboration. So yeah, I want to just get better. And I think it's a good book to just make you better.
Yes, yeah. A lot of people in the creative arts really swear by it. Full disclosure, I've only skimmed bits and pieces, so it's on my list of things to go through the whole thing.
I did 1 month straight through for a few years, and then I've totally lost it. So we'll see if I have the willpower, hopefully.
It sounds like you're on the right track, though, and with or without The Artist's Way, you're still finding ways to express, and you're doing crocheting and lots of other fun stuff. So
that's just keeping the hands moving so I don't bite my fingernails, because I've been a nail biter since I was 4 years old. So
I'm a fidgeter, so I have like a whole basket of fidget toys because I can't sit still.
Oh, I like that though. Yeah, I'm the one that's always got the leg twitch, That's the thing for me.
So you talked a little bit about books before. Who's one of your favorite authors? Not just Jane Austen, of course.
I grew up absolutely loving the Harry Potter series and The Hobbit and things like that. So I think I also have taken quite a few linguistics courses. So J.R.R. Tolkien to me has to be the top. I mean, he invented languages and alphabets. I'm teaching myself Tengwar right now, which is the alphabet system that all his Elvish languages are based in. And Rings of Power really had an effect. So so I think it would have to be Tolkien for sure.
He's such a genius.
I'm showing my nerd now, like my inner big time nerd. But yeah, he's wonderful. And you always catch something different when you read those books.
Are you a fan of like the extended cut of the movies where you're just glued to the screen for like 12 hours?
Yeah, that's me. I wish I love those movies too, but I wish the filter had kind of aged better. I really thought like it was gonna look good forever. And those came out in like 2000 and 2001. And just doesn't I still love them, I'll always love them, but I'm like, oh, Peter Jackson, maybe that filter was of a certain time.
And then, of course, CGI and everything has just really come so far since
Yeah.
then, you know.
I know. There's something about that too, though, that I think and those are artists too.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something about even the, silly animatronic Jaws where I find that more scary than knowing it's, a CGI something. And I don't know. I wish we could get back into like the puppetry and the real, like, so they still do like amazing makeup and things like that. But I wish we would take it back a little bit on the CGI. My dad gets really mad if there's ever CGI fire anywhere. He's like, they couldn't just set it on fire. Like they should have just set it on fire. So
Oh yeah. True. Yes, it would be nice to like see some movies and special effects where they sort of harken back to the older quote unquote times, you know.
yeah, there's a Sam Rockwell movie. David Bowie's son, Duncan Jones, did a sci-fi movie called Moon. I think it was in the early 2000s. Sam Rockwell plays multiple characters, but he plays a astronaut that's on the moon by himself. And all of the special effects were done with like small scale models. And A, you wouldn't know, but B, it all looks so good. And I kept thinking, this does not look like CGI. What is going on with this? And it's because none of it was. And so I would definitely say if you like sci-fi but don't want to watch fake stuff the whole time, Moon is a great is a great film.
Cool. You know, I've actually not heard of that one. So I'll have to check that out. So many great recommendations, Laura.
Oh well, just sitting on that TV. No, I'm kidding. I'm really
So, a couple of quirky questions before we go. If you were stranded on a desert island, what is one music album, one book, and one food that you would take with you?
Okay, I'm gonna start with the food. My husband makes a wonderful Thai curry, and so I would do that. I could eat that every day. I would be fine. I'm gonna cheat and say I have one book that's the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy, and I'm going to take that. And as far as music goes, there is a kind of a electro EDM ambient group called Dark Side, all one word. They have an album called Psychic that I would take because it's not it's not like song. I think that songs, I would say Dark Side of the Moon because I'm a huge Pink Floyd person, but I think the songs and the words in a song would drive you a little bonkers. So I'm going to go with like kind of ambient. I don't know if you know the musician Christian Loeffler. I would also take any one of his like albums because they're kind of atmospheric, backgroundy, but not a ton of words to drive you nuts. And I just sing to myself. I would just perform Les Mis all by myself and do all the parts is what I would be doing.
You would definitely keep yourself busy on a desert island.
Oh, yeah. But then not knowing a certain lyric and not being able to look it up would just drive you wild.
Very true.
You'd have to make them all up. I'd become like the Weird Al Yankovic of like a tiny island and just make up my own stuff.
I love that.
Choreography included. Like we'll do the whole thing,
Well, now you've got even more goals for 2023, right?
Just make up your own weird musical.
So, one final question. This is a fun one. If you could bring back any creative person From the grave, who would it be?
Oh my goodness. I think I might live to regret it, but I think it has to be Vincent van Gogh. I just think he never knew how famous he was, and I feel like we could get to him at this point. We could get him in like some sort of art therapy and he could, flourish. And I would love to meet him because I think that he was probably just wild.
That sounds excellent. Well, Laura, thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. This is so fun.
Yeah, you're welcome. And listeners, please check out the show notes for a brief bio of Laura and keep listening because it sounds like she's going to keep doing some amazing things. So you might see her dancing in a theater stage near you. Hi, this is Tammy with Creative Piecemeal Podcast, and you have to check out Corey's My Acting Life, a daily planner. It's a 12-week, undated daily planner specifically designed to help multi-passionate actors and creatives like you and me. The planner is filled with pages and spreads to help you gain clarity on your goals, find focus within your creative life, and determine the next best steps to achieve the life of your dreams. When you purchase this planner, you get access to the accompanying free training videos that walk you through how to get the most out of each of these pages. It actually guides you through the exact process that Corey uses with her private coaching clients. So take this as an opportunity to choose yourself and start living the creative life of your dreams. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Like the show? Have a question? Stop by the Facebook and Instagram pages. Links are in the show notes, or search for Creative Piecemeal Podcast on social media and click follow for all the latest.